Hello and welcome. I'm Adam Dennison, Vice President, Midsize Enterprise Service with the Channel Company. Joining me today for this executive interview is Mehdi Aftahi, CTO of Technology Evaluation Centers. Mehdi, welcome.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And first off, I want to thank TEC for being a wonderful partner of MES for a number of years. We've seen you at many of our events, and hopefully we'll be able to keep that going and doing well for TEC.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very good event. We find it very useful and informative. I hope that the users and participants in your event as well find it useful in terms of getting the service providers and others, IT related technology firms there all under one roof. It's a good opportunity for everybody.
Awesome. Thank you. So Mehdi, before we get started, for those that aren't familiar with TEC, why don't you just give us a brief overview of TEC and your role specifically within it, and then we'll kind of dig into the topic at hand.
Sure. Thank you. Technology Evaluation Centers, or as short TEC, is a consulting / advisory firm that allows our users to evaluate and do the analysis on enterprise applications. We have an online platform that allows you to compare and do evaluations of the different enterprise applications. And enterprise applications, if I have to explain, is like ERPs and CRMs of this world. And if you have a need to replace your current ERP system or CRM system, it's a place to go in terms of finding the criteria, the functionality that you may want to include in your evaluation. At the same time, we have collected over 20 years the information about all the vendors and suppliers of the enterprise applications in a central database. So you can actually then do the comparisons online. At the same time, we offer services that allows you to go through that process with our experienced consultants. So even if you don't have the necessary in-house expertise to understand all of the language or the technical elements of the evaluation, we can help you go through the requirements gathering to functional requirements, definitions, and vendor evaluations, all the way to contract and price negotiations, managing the demos, and finally helping clients in their implementation journey, which is not saying that we are actually implementers, but we guide them through the implementation process, which I think is the subject of this interview, right?
It certainly is. And I think just thinking, I'm certainly not a technologist, but I've been in high tech media long enough to know that ERP is a challenging one when it comes to selection, investment, implementation, evaluation. And I think probably even more so for mid-market organizations, given that they're a little bit more resource strapped than some of our Fortune 1000 organizations. And as you mentioned, this is part two of our executive interviews. The first one we focused on, the assessment, the architecture piece, the evaluation piece. And today we certainly want to focus on that implementation piece, or as you call it, I like it, the promise, right?
Yeah.
So can you kind of walk through, what are the key steps when it comes to the implementation phase of an enterprise rollout? And let's just use ERP as an example, because again, I think that's one of the more challenging ones that are out there.
Yeah, for sure. So I think I can start with an analogy, I guess. When you're buying a house, they always say that this is the biggest investment that anybody will do in their personal, lives. So you have to be very careful, understand what you're buying, and really check your requirements, your needs, your family's needs, and it's a big investment. So that means that for years to come, you have to live by that decision. Of course, a house is always a house. You can always sell it. It's a little bit even less I would say, dramatic than an ERP for a small company. An ERP, or in general, any enterprise applications, especially if you're talking about managing your entire process within the organization, it's a big investment to begin with. So in medium-sized companies, it can take up to $1 million or two, all inclusive. Let's say that if you have even around 100 to 200 users, yeah, it can easily add up to millions of dollars of investment, including the licenses and implementation costs and everything else. There is also an internal cost associated with the implementation of ERP. Again, these are all on the cost per point of view. However, the ERP, it actually controls your business. It actually allows you to improve your market reach, improve your quality of service to your client. It also, or and on the contrary, if you're not selecting or you're not buying the right software, it can actually greatly damage your ability to provide services to your client or products to your services. It could disrupt your production. It could actually disrupt your billing or ability to bill your clients and collect the money that you worked hard to be able to bill. So all of these interruptions could lead into loss of reputation, and eventually can bleed your company into a failure. And recovering from that, it could be very costly. So that's why, again, when I started with the house, okay, after a while, if you see the house is not good, you may take your losses and sell the house and move on to a next house. Yes, you might actually, have some damages. But imagine in that process, you actually lose your wife too, because you're so much in that process that you lost your family over the house. So
Yep.
that's the main challenge of buying an ERP application or any enterprise application that controls the way you operate internally and also with your clients and your delivery services. The quality of the service will be dropped, and that could be really damaging.
So-
Or your wife is going to divorce you.
Yeah, and then it becomes very costly. So what are what are some of the primary, risks and pitfalls that a mid-market CIO and an organization, even CFO, obviously, is going to be heavily involved here. What are some of those primary risks that they need to be aware of if they decide to do the implementation phase on their own? And then talk about, how partnering with a TEC can help them kind of put those guardrails up and make sure that things are on time, on budget, and kind of keeping things where they need to be.
Yeah. So, if we go back a little bit, implementation of the ERP, it's not a project that you jump on, with 2 feet right in the pool, and you just go and you try to fix everything afterwards. It's something that requires a lot of planning. You need to first, as I said, you need to understand what the vendors or service provider are offering to you or promising to you, and if those promises are actually good for your business, and if they are feasible and they are able to deliver for you. That starts during the selection and evaluation process. So what we bring to the table, if we start from early on, you have to do your homework, understand the offer, understand your requirements, and based on that, negotiate a project plan for the implementation with the vendors and the service providers. So the key in a successful implementation is a a good understanding of your requirements, and for the vendors as well, is to understand your requirements. They're not like, it's always it's a, I would say it's a myth or a false assumption that vendors um, don't care about the failure of the project. They only care about cashing in and
Sure.
charging billing you and leave. No vendor is actually interested in uh, deliberately setting you up for a failure. There are lots of different elements during the implementation that can go wrong, and uh, I think everybody in that implementation process, including vendors and the client themselves, contributing to the failure. And one of the most important aspects or the pitfalls that you can talk about is the scope creep that um, vendors, because they're incentivized by selling you more services, they're pushing for that. Again, it's not 100%. I would not blame them. They trying to please the client. The client often um, resisting to the change, so they want to keep the status quo in their organization in terms of the processes and the way they're operated before the implementation of the ERP. So they are pushing for, what if we do it like this? And what if we don't want to do it the way that you're offering it out of the box, out of your package? Can we change this here? Can we change that there? So it's more aligned with the way we are used to it. And that is something that most vendors, if it's easy thing to do and it's just giving them more money to to implement, why not? So they start that process. It's a combination of the two friendly negotiations that happening at the beginning of the project, one or two little change here and there, it starts into snowball into bigger changes. And at the end of the day, you will see that the project scope and timeline gone over budget and over time. And that's where the management typically comes and plays a role in saying that, okay, we need to keep things under control. It's going off over time or over budget. But our role, or anybody that wants to have a successful implementation, is to have an independent uh, advisor to the project teams, the two teams, like the vendor and the compliance side, which reports to the management of or steering committee of the project. In that process, again, if we are involved in the evaluation and selection, then we know exactly what the real requirements and needs are,
Sure.
so we can eliminate any uh, in impractical or I would say unnecessary change order that comes from the client side. And that's typically, based on our experience, it's the biggest source of change that happening because of the resistance to change. People are putting requests. The vendors are inclined to accept those because it makes the project go smoothly at the beginning, and there is less confrontational, less confrontation with the client side, and probably it's going to be a minute change, and they will go for it. And as I said, it will snowball into more and more. So our role is to monitor those changes. And I'm not saying that in every project there would be absolutely zero change. Sometimes changes are okay, and there could be things that we missed during the evaluation, or the client has changed their business a little bit that requires a little bit of change. But those have to be carefully examined and evaluated, and then go and negotiate the cost with the timeline and cost with the service providers. In general, I would say the biggest pitfall is, and the risk is, the scope creep and the time and money. And to avoid that is you need to have more control and discipline on the changes that you request to the vendors.
So what kind of, walk us through a little bit about in terms of the team that you would put in place on the implementation team. It sounds like they're answering to they're advising and answering to the customer to make sure things, stay on time, on budget, avoid a scope creep. So what type of team are you putting in place there? What type of expertise do they have? How long would they typically stay with with the implementation, and then let them kind of go on their own? What does that look like?
Okay. So typically, if you look at the implementation project different steps, the vendors start with blueprinting process, where they actually do a very high level blueprint of the processes. And in those sessions, you have the subject matter experts from the client side, and also the process engineers from the vendor side. In our role, we're going to participate in those sessions. Those are the sessions that the most of the scope creep actually gets introduced into the process, where the clients are actually demanding the changes, or they will not accept the way that the process engineers from the vendor side are proposing the solution. So that's where the first interception or our role comes into play. What we have as a team structure, we typically have a single project manager that is responsible for the entire advisory process throughout the project, from the start all the way to the go live, and a couple of months after go live, which we call it the normalization period, where you actually went live with the project, but you're probably running it in parallel with your old system. Sure. And you're trying to smooth out the kinks in the system. Like, if there's certain things not happening, the users are complaining, things that are happening. So our role starts from all the way from the start of the project, typically even before the start of the project, which is the contract and price negotiations, because we need to know exactly what's being promised and what's being contracted. So that clears the scope of the project, and all the way to the after go live. Now, as I said, that's one single project manager that carries the entire process from the start to the end, and that's for the continuity. In different aspects, in different steps of the project, we may actually introduce other consultants or business analysts or application analysts to the project if the project manager requests that. So we're going to be a team, but with the project manager sitting on top, managing the two teams on the vendor and the client side. Our role, as I said before, is to report to the steering committee. So we are not influenced by either party. We are not influenced by the project manager on the client side, and we are not influenced by the vendor side. Our goal is to make sure that the project is on time and on budget and is a successful implementation. We have the track record for it to show as well. So every project that we've been involved in the let's say in the past 5 years, where we were auditing or providing advisor services in the implementation, they all went below budget and sometimes even earlier than expected, as it was shown. And the only way to do that, again, is to have an independent body that is not influenced by the different pools of the project. Vendors trying to sell more, users trying to resist the change.
Got it. Got it. Business process management, business process improvement is something that pops up an awful lot in terms of when we do all of our state of the mid-market research. What does business process improvement, mean to you, and how does TEC help its customers go through business process improvements to really make sure that they're going to get the most out of that software investment, make sure they're getting great adoption out of that, utilization out of that?
Yeah, for sure. Business process improvement is one of the main reasons why any organization, even starting the ERP implementation or going through an ERP project, there must be a reason for the company or the management thinking that the status quo of the company at the current level that they have, whatever automation there is. So even if they are using Excel sheets, they must be feeling the need to change that process. So changing that process, hopefully it leads into an improved process, because you never want to change something for worse, right? So you always want to go from where you are to another state where you improved something, whether it being the customer satisfaction, your cost reduction within your production, or having a smoother production planning, and maybe internal employee efficiencies, whether being getting into more markets or produce more products. All of those have to be accompanied with some kind of an improvement within your processes, internal processes. So, for example, if you're not able to bill your clients fast enough, it's because your systems are not equipped for that. Or if you cannot close your year end or month end or quarter end in a easy fashion, and it just slows down your processing of your finances. All of these are different reasons where you can actually determine that, okay, I need an ERP or a different system that comes in and takes over the current processes and improve it in a way that I can do more. Okay. Now, where does that happen, or how does that can happen? It happens through implementation of an already made and proven application. And that's where I was talking to you about changes, right? So most of the ERP vendors have best practice processes already programmed in their applications, where they can say, okay, if you want to do this process, the best way, based on our experience, which brings us to the point that you have to select vendors and implementers that have the knowledge of your industry and understand your bottlenecks within your operations, and they have done this project a couple of times in the past for similar organizations within the similar industries. So that means that they have that knowledge that this process works the best this way, and that's what they call it, the best practice. Now, in an ideal world, you want to take your processes, whatever they are, good or bad. We are not saying that everything you have is bad, but whatever it is, you're going to be moving into a new application with new processes. So again, if I go back to my old example of the house, so you're moving your house and you're going to a new house. You're not going to bring in your bedroom with you as a room, right? You're going to host everything that you have. Probably your bed can go if it fits in, but you're not going to right away say, okay, I'm going to take everything we have, or you're not going to move your kitchen from the previous house and bring it into and try to fit it into your new house or the kitchen. And that change management is something that even if you move the house, you're going to be, for a while, you're going to be still missing your old house, or you're missing the old ways. But hopefully, because you're excited about the new house, or maybe bigger house, or maybe different house, you're going to be accepting those changes. In the business process management, it's the same thing. So you have to bring in your data, which is your furniture, some of the stuff. You bring it into a new house. Now it's going to be rearranged in a different way that operates in a different way, and hopefully more smooth, and in a different flow, which allows you to do more, right? So that is called the business process improvement. Now, when do you do that? When do you do that? You don't do that during the selection and evaluation. That business improvement, it's going to be happening with the help of the vendors and implementers. And it's going to be done during the blueprinting sessions. That is happening right at the beginning of the project. So you're going to be sitting down, your subject matter experts are going to be sitting down with the subject matter experts, or the designers on the vendor side, and they're going to be talking about the furniture, right? Okay, I have this bed, I have this, desk, and I want to move it. Where does it go? How does it fit into the
How do I
new
get
house?
to it?
In
Yep.
that process, there might be certain things that you're going to throw out, right? When you move, there are certain things that doesn't belong to the new house. Even if you like it, even if you love that desk, it doesn't fit. You have to throw it out and get another one, or maybe a better one.
Yep.
And it's going to be different. It's going to be difficult at the beginning, but you have to make that process as smoothly as possible, right? So that improvement is going to eventually give you the result that you want. However, if you insist in the old ways, now that's where you're going to be able to, or the vendors are going to say, okay, I'm going to knock that wall out because you want to bring that desk that doesn't fit in that small room, right? So once you knock that wall down, then it starts the whole thing. Now you have
Just
to
go
knock
creep
another
right there.
wall, then you have to paint it,
Yep.
then you have to change the roof, change the window, and whatever. So that's where this scope creep happens. So now, again, going back to my business process improvement, the best way to avoid it, again, is through training. You need to train the users with the best practices that are coming from the vendors and implementers that are in that room. We can actually do that a little bit during the demo sessions, during the evaluation process, and even through the requirements gathering. We start that process of change management very, very early in the process within our evaluation and selection projects. But really, when it comes to actual implementation of the best practices and the improved processes, that's where you're going to be able to see the concrete results during the blueprinting session. And then later on, you go through the sandboxing process and, end user acceptance testing. And that's where the users are going to have a good chance to see how the new process is actually working for them.
So do you get to the stage where you're working with some end users as well? Because I'm an end user again. I'm not a technologist. I've had many process changes put upon me in my career, and had to change the way we do things. Adopt new software. Typically, it's for the better, but there's going to be resistance along the way. So, if do you get to the stage of helping the end users, and if not, what's your advice? Oh, you do. Okay, perfect.
Yes. As I said, like during the implementation process, we go from the start all the way to the go live and after go live.
Yep.
So that process, it starts with blueprinting and then design and then the implementation or configuration of the application, data migration. We provide services and feedback and advisory in all aspects of the project, because in some areas, for example, during the data migration, you need to understand, again, it's like the desk that you want to bring from your old house to your new house. That's the data migration. That's where you actually have to reshape the data that fits into the new
Right.
system, right? So that process by itself, it's a huge undertaking for many organizations
Mhm.
for various reasons. Some organizations have data that is scattered all over the place. Some in Excel, some in multiple systems. Some they don't even they have a consistent look at the data, because the data in one system may conflict with the data in the other system. But you need to somehow merge and come up with this sense that, okay, this is the data that we are going to agree on
Yep.
to be the reference point and the basis to go forward, right? So in that process, again, we are involved and we are trying to apply the best knowledge of our the organization to the process. And that's typically a task that the vendors don't want to get involved.
Yep.
It's a task that is given to the vendor, to the end users, and for a good reason, because vendors don't understand where the data is, right?
Yep.
They're and they don't want to take the responsibility. They're going to provide an Excel sheet or a template that's okay. Give me the data in this format. I'm going to import it for you. And if the data is bad, it's your responsibility. We have to do it again and again and again until you're satisfied. Now, going back to your question, after that, there is the user acceptance testing, which means that you're going to be giving the system to a bunch of users, hopefully key users that understand, most of the processes the way it's supposed to be. They are the users probably that have participated in the blueprinting session, and they understand where the vendors are, going to in terms of where they are today in terms of their processes. They're going to be doing the acceptance testing. And then once that is done, then you get into the training of the end users. We basically manage and monitor all of these processes to make sure that there's an independent point of view
Sure.
in all aspects of the implementation. And each one of these could be a risk to the success of the project. If, for example, your data migration doesn't go smoothly, you're going to have garbage in your new ERP system or inconsistent data, which is even worse. Garbage is garbage. You deal with it. You just ignore it, right?
Yep.
But sometimes there is a good-looking data which passes all your tests, smell tests and everything, but it guides you to the wrong decision
Outcome.
in the
Yep.
process. So you're going to have loss of revenue, loss of clients, or loss of quality for your product. So all of those are things that you have to take care of during the process. Now, the user acceptance test is another key milestone within the change management process, where you're going to get the approval of the the key users for the new system. Those users are probably the influencers as well within the organization, right? So you want to buy them over. Those are key influencers within the organization. And if they say, yeah, I like that, most people that are less knowledgeable than them in terms of the process, they would trust them. So that it's also very key part of the process to select those key users properly in terms of their influence. And sometimes you want to get the most, the people that are against the project, right?
Most resistant.
Board, the most resistant people right from the get-go into the project and give them that role. So that means that they're going to be part of the process. And if they are the ones that say yes, then everybody else will follow.
Starts to follow suit. Yeah, that makes sense.
We had very good success in actually that strategy to getting on board the people that are within the organization. They're the most vocal opponents of the project. Give them responsibility in the implementation process. So not only that they feel good because they have control, and if for any legitimate reason they have concerns, they can actually fix it in the process. And I'm not saying that everybody has bad intentions. There might be very reasonable, concerns from certain users and experts within the organization, and you better hear that. If you push them aside and if you just say, oh, he doesn't know anything, or he's just mad because we want to change the system, they're going to come back. They're not going to sit down and just say, okay, I have to accept it. No, nobody will accept this. So they're going to come back, and they're going to come back again and again until the project is a failure. The best way is to get them to participate, and that's another strategy within the change management.
Yep.
Then you get into the training, and most vendors today have train the trainer kind of program, which it works because it helps the clients because they don't have to pay for the absorbent the extra fees to the vendors to do the training for everybody, but it has its own downsides. We find that if the trainer program, the trainees are not well trained, then you're losing that quality going down the path, right? So you have to make sure that not only you train the trainees well, you provide that process over a longer period of time, or repeat training process. Why? Because in many cases, you get the training probably 4 months before go live, and there are lots of things happening in the project. And these are not, people that are really the users of the system yet, right? So it's a foreign concept for them. Like, you get the training, you understand at the time what it was. It's 3 months, 4 months down the road that you go live with it. They probably forget a lot of the stuff that was taught, and you need to have continuous training during the process, during the implementation, during the go live process, and even after go live. You have to have more training. The cost that the companies have to endure to provide those training with the good trainers from the vendor and implementer side is going to pay back multiple fold after the go live. So just a little bit of cost saving at the beginning, it may actually cost you more at the end. So our strategy is make sure that the training is efficient and effective, right?
Yep. Makes
It's
sense.
not just training for the sake of training. Now, in many cases, the trainer may actually work and it could be okay. But in many cases, you may have a refresher once in a while or change the teams, get more people involved in your training program.
Yep. So in closing, we have a couple minutes left. Do you have any customer examples you can share to kind of bring this to life a little bit, whether it's anonymized or not? Is there anything you can share with us in that regard?
Yeah, we are. We have a lot of videos online with in our YouTube channel that are testimonials from our clients that have gone through that process. And the most common theme there is that we provide guidance and services that they may never even thought that they would need. One.
Sure.
Second is, again, one of the most important part of the implementation process is the fact that, people at the company, they have their own day jobs, right? So they have to attend to the business of the organization. At the same time, they have this extra role to play in the implementation. Most of our clients are actually relying on our project managers to handle all of those requirements that comes from the project side. I think that's the biggest contribution that we can have. Somebody that is third party, somebody that is impartial, somebody that has the knowledge of the organization. At the same time, they're not involved in the day-to-day operations of the organization, so they can manage the tasks that are coming to them and make a good decision going forward. But again, our YouTube channel has a lot of examples of our happy clients.
Perfect. So in closing, if you had to put this, there's a lot here in terms of the process of implementation to go live, beta, and all that. What would you say is that kind of most valuable part of that oversight process and service that you offer that customers should really pay attention to and take advantage of?
Yeah. So what I would say the most valuable part is the fact that we can control the direction of the project. We can put guardrails around the project and make sure that all parties going forward with the project for the success of the project, and they don't have their own different agendas, like from the vendors to sell more, from the users to change less or to resist the change. And our track record shows again that we can save companies quite a lot of money during the implementation. And to me, that's the most valuable part, other than the fact that the project, when it's successful, everybody wins. The vendor wins, the clients win, we are winning because we have a good client.
Yeah.
And everybody is happy. When projects usually go on a different path, the finger pointing starts. Vendor is blaming the user blaming the vendor. Both of them, they're blaming the consultants or the selection consultants or the vendor, the implementer. The management comes in and fires the project managers. We have seen this a lot.
Yeah.
That midway through the project managers get fired, or they request the vendor or the implementer to change the project management on the vendor side. Those are things that sometimes there is no, you cannot avoid it, of course, but
Sure.
it's always a bad sign for a project. So we are there to detect these problems before they become uh, irreversible,
Yep.
right? So we detect those problems early on and try to address it and make sure that we have a good path forward.
Got it. Got it. Well, I've seen many of your the YouTube videos, and you certainly have a lot of customers out there that are happy. I've met some of them at MES events, and we at the channel company are a TEC customer as well. So I thank you so much, Mehdi, for the time today. Is there anything in closing that any last comments that you wanna make?
No, I think we are closing another year. I guess 2024 is coming to an end. I wish everybody in the U.S. happy Thanksgiving and then the end of the month here, and for everybody else, a good end to the year and happy holidays.
Thank you so much. It's definitely it's a fun time of year, but also when we're closing the books, we're on a calendar year. It's a stressful one as well. So yes, thank you so much for the time again, Mehdi, and we'll see you at NMES soon, we hope.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thanks.